International criticism will not weaken our resolve, says Israel, as it presses on with a plan to occupy more of Gaza. Germany's halting arms exports to its ally. The UN will hold an emergency meeting tomorrow, but Israel will not heed the warning of catastrophic consequences. One of the few voices with any power of persuasion had gone fishing on a trip to England today. Risking a split with his hosts, the US Vice President criticised Britain's approach to the conflict.
The United Kingdom is going to make its decision. We have no plans to recognize a Palestinian state. I don't know what it would mean to really recognize a Palestinian state, given the lack of a functional government there.
So if America is resolute, you can expect Israel to remain so too. With warnings of mass casualties and the danger to surviving hostages, the days ahead may yet unleash unseen horrors in Gaza. Also tonight, as a teenager's convicted of murdering 15-year-old Harvey Willgoose with a knife, Rachel has a shocking insight into just how prevalent they are in our schools. One of the women abused by Jeffrey Epstein tells us she's been re-traumatised by his accomplice, Ghislaine Maxwell's move to a minimum security prison.
It feels like a violation. It's like directly a violation against me is how it feels.
Houston, we've had a problem.
Houston has lost a legend. Jim Lovell, heroic commander of Apollo 13, dies aged 97. And self-esteem issues. The artist behind the Lionesses World Cup anthem tells Nina about struggling with self-doubt.
There were jobs I wanted to do that I was told you couldn't. And there was a whole world out there. And it's not just being a footballer, it's like all the other, jobs within sport that now women might be able to do.
This is ITV News at 10 with Paul Brand.
Good evening. Israel was met with fresh condemnation today from once staunch allies as the world awoke to its plans for a takeover of Gaza City. Sir Keir Starmer called the escalation wrong, saying it would only bring about yet more bloodshed, with tens of thousands already dead. His fears for the humanitarian situation on the ground and for the hostages still held by Hamas were echoed by governments around the world. Germany announced it was immediately suspending some arms exports. The UN Security Council will hold an emergency meeting tomorrow. Yet it seems unlikely any of this will force Benjamin Netanyahu's government to change tack, especially when, from the White House, there is apparent disinterest. Its president preoccupied with other conflicts, its vice president literally gone fishing.
It is an omen of even worse to come, an airstrike on Gaza City, or rather its remains, pounded for month after month, yet still home to perhaps 1 million people. The Israeli government now wants its army to take these battered streets.
It's difficult to imagine that the situation could be worse. It's so appalling already that it's beyond imagination to think that it could be even worse, but it will.
Yet Israel insists to defeat Hamas, it must control a city that teems with those displaced by war, who might then be forced to move again to a so-called safe zone in the south, where aid drops fail to meet existing need. 2 million starving people could be crammed into 10% of the land, where desperate souls already fight for survival. We have frozen these images before the balcony collapses, crushing those below. It is an escalation too far, even for many Israelis. The plan agreed overnight by Israel's Security Cabinet comes against a backdrop of protests. The head of Israel's military is among those warning the operation could endanger the lives of the 20 or so hostages still captive.
We know this decision is going to cause a lot of unwanted death of more soldiers and hostages. Take this down. Stop it now.
At the UN, the Palestinian envoy called for concerted international action.
I hope that we collectively would succeed in avoiding such a crazy, irresponsible, dangerous, vicious plans.
One of Israel's staunchest allies, Germany, has halted arms exports in protest. Here, Sir Keir Starmer begged the Israeli government to reconsider. This action will do nothing to bring an end to this conflict or to help secure the release of hostages, he said. It will only bring more bloodshed. But tonight, Israel's defense minister said criticism would not weaken their resolve to defeat what he called the monsters of Hamas. The fate of Gaza City and its people seems sealed. John Rain, News at 10.
So what does this all mean for the future? The latest mapping from the United Nations shows almost all of Gaza already under some form of Israeli military order. Under this new plan, the whole of Gaza City would also be taken over in what is seen as a move to ultimately control the entire Gaza Strip. It is home to more than 2 million people, the vast majority now displaced by a conflict that has already claimed 61,000 Palestinian lives, according to the Hamas-run health ministry. Well, ending that conflict is the stated common goal for both the US and the UK, though there are disagreements on how to go about it. So said the US Vice President J.D. Vance as he sat down with David Lammy at the Foreign Secretary's Grace and Favour retreat Chevening. Well, Shihab is here to talk to us about that interesting meeting. And Shihab, we're told that the pair actually get on quite well, although that seems sometimes difficult to imagine, but definitely a deep divide over the approach to Gaza. And we saw that today, didn't we?
Yeah, absolutely. As you sort of mentioned, the broad goal here for both sides is the same. It is to try and avert this humanitarian disaster as it's unfolding. It's to try and get the hostages released. It's to try and stop the war and get a ceasefire. But there is a disagreement on how to get there. The United Kingdom has been very critical of Israel in recent weeks and months. There's been a suspension of some arms sales. There's been the suggestion that the UK could recognise Palestine as a state next month if certain conditions are not met. The US has not gone down that path, and ultimately the United States is the power broker here. They are the most powerful nation and most influential in this situation, but there are disagreements. And J.D. Vance, the Vice President, wasn't afraid to talk about those today.
Obviously, the United Kingdom is going to make its decision. We have no plans to recognize a Palestinian state. I don't know what it would mean to really recognize a Palestinian state, given the lack of a functional government there. You know, what the president has made very clear is our two goals are very simple right now vis-a-vis the situation in Israel and Gaza. Number one, we want to make it so that Hamas cannot attack innocent Israeli civilians ever again, and we think that has to come through the eradication of Hamas. Second, the president has been very moved by these terrible images of the humanitarian crisis in Gaza, so we want to make sure that we solve that problem.
That was the slightly politer way of publicly disagreeing, and not something we've always seen with the Vice President there. What we do have is the Foreign Secretary now spending what is supposed to be a holiday for the Vice President with him. There's been shots of them fishing together. It's an opportunity for some soft diplomacy, a chance for the Foreign Secretary to potentially try and sway the Vice President, but ultimately it'll be up to the man in the White House, Donald Trump, on whether or not he wants to change his mind on this.
All right, fascinating, Shihab. Thank you very much indeed. On what was the deadline that the American president had set for the solution to another war, Donald Trump had an update tonight. He said that a peace deal between Ukraine and Russia would likely mean there would be some swapping of territories. Mr. Trump was speaking as he unveiled a pact to end conflict between Armenia and Azerbaijan. His planned meeting with Russian President Vladimir Putin will, he said, take place very shortly, with an announcement on its location expected tonight. A teenager has been convicted of murdering a fellow pupil by stabbing him to death in their Sheffield school in February. Harvey Willgoose was 15 and described by his sister today as warm, funny and caring. He was killed in the playground in the school lunch break with a 13-centimetre hunting knife. Just moments later, the murderer was seen brandishing that weapon in the school canteen. He too was just 15, meaning he cannot be named, but is due to be sentenced in October. Well, Harvey's family have pledged to continue their campaign against knife crime and in support of safer schools. But as some introduce bag searches and metal detectors to try to tackle the problem, the need for action is clear. As Rachel has heard, there is a brazenness with which some pupils speak about carrying knives in the classroom. And figures we've obtained show hundreds of children have been reported to police for having them on school premises. The youngest was just 7.
I felt invincible. I was only ever nervous if there were police around.
These 3 children have all taken knives into schools. For protection, they say, an easier option than a physical playground fight.
My guts were telling me don't carry it, but I had to.
Why did you feel you had to?
Because I was trying to stay safe, trying to stay protected.
Have you ever come close to using it, or have you used it?
I haven't used it, but I've scared some people with it.
They find the idea of being caught by school staff almost laughable.
Teachers are clueless. There's guys that have been searched with stuff on them and they still haven't got caught.
Is it pretty easy to hide knives in school?
It's easy to hide knives everywhere. It's easy for everything. Like, people don't get, there'll be guys that have stabbed about 5, like I could name 5 people that have stabbed another person and haven't got caught for it. Like, a lot of the stuff is easy.
Okay, morning, you're right, just come in please. If you just come down here.
Schools are trying to take back some control. At Archbishop Isley in Birmingham, staff and police carry out spot checks where pupils' bags are searched.
Go and see PC, Vicky over there, and just walk around that metal cart with me, okay?
What strikes you watching this is the ages of these kids, 12, 13-year-olds, being searched for weapons.
For 10 years they've carried out these checks and no weapons have ever been found. But the head teacher here is a realist.
You've been in teaching for 22 years. Does this kind of scenario make you feel sad?
Not sad really. I think we've got to do something together. The problem is a societal problem, but it's just about working together with school, with the police, pupils, parents together. It's about doing something and making a difference.
And improving lives is what Harvey Willgoose's parents now focus on. As their son's killer is convicted, they channel their grief, trying to make positive change in their community.
It's what's keeping us going, doing good things for our kids, because there's no winners on both sides. That is family. The other person's family have got an empty bedroom.
But disarming takes courage.
You've all talked about the reason for carrying knives is to feel safe because others do. Do you talk among friends about carrying knives and what if we all put them down, or are they conversations that don't happen?
No, they don't happen. We don't talk about stuff like that.
Do you ever want to?
Maybe.
That's it, walk towards me.
But they will need persuasion. There is a sense of power felt by carrying a knife. For many, that is more important than any potential consequence. Rachel Townsend, News at 10.
For all his astronomical accomplishments, it is the failed Apollo 13 mission for which Jim Lovell will always be remembered. The NASA commander has died aged 97, more than 5 decades on from the spaceflight that nearly killed him. Whilst it did, of course, rob him of the opportunity to walk on the moon, something that remained his life's only regret, it also afforded him and his famous utterance, cinematic immortality.
Jim Lovell had already been round the moon and back again on Apollo 8. But in April 1970, he was due to be the 5th man to walk on the lunar surface. But 2 days into the flight, his fellow astronaut Jack Swigert announced words which, though often misquoted, have gone down in history.
Okay, Houston, we've had a problem here. I don't know what it was. Okay. Houston, we've had a problem.
An explosion had ruptured an oxygen tank. Lovell reported the shocking news.
We are venting something out into space.
There was no chance of making it to the moon, but the story of how they got home safely gripped the world. 25 years later, it became a Hollywood movie, with Tom Hanks playing Lovell.
We have a main bus B undervolt. We've got a lot of thruster activity here in Houston.
The astronauts were running out of oxygen, but brainstorming sessions back at NASA came up with a makeshift solution. The lunar module, which should have landed on the moon, became a temporary lifeboat. And 4 days after the explosion, they safely returned to Earth.
Teamwork was necessary. Good leadership, initiative, to think outside of the box. When things go wrong, how do we repair them? Those are the three things that were absolutely necessary.
Jim Lovell never flew in space again. He was honoured by NASA, and he did make a cameo appearance in the movie, welcoming Tom Hanks back home. Tonight, NASA paid tribute, and his family said they were enormously proud of his amazing life. Survival in space gave Jim Lovell another 55 years of life on Earth.
Captain James Arthur Lovell, who died yesterday at the age of 97. Scotland's former First Minister Nicola Sturgeon has admitted to dark moments over her and her then husband's arrests. The comments come in her much-anticipated memoir, and she sat down with Julie for her first television interview ahead of its publication.
You talk about the book as being a lifeline, writing it, and therapy. Ready to go? You've got a tattoo.
Midlife crisis alert.
Midlife crisis alert. You're arrested. You have to attend a police station. You're there for hours. How was that? Alex Salmond. He died very suddenly.
You can watch Nicola Sturgeon, the interview, at 7 p.m. on Monday here on ITV1, ITVX and STV, and I can tell you it is not one that you'll want to miss. Now, while US President Donald Trump may be desperate to escape questions about Jeffrey Epstein, moving on from the past is not a luxury afforded to the paedophile financier's victims. Epstein died by suicide before he could stand trial in 2019. But his close associate, Ghislaine Maxwell, was convicted of sex trafficking 3 years later. So the prospect of a pardon for her, which may be looking more likely, is naturally greeted with dismay among those she groomed.
In the heart of Florida's most exclusive enclave, where Donald Trump still spends many weekends, Jeffrey Epstein presided over a depraved web of child abuse. 20 years ago, his home here was raided by the police. Today, the house has been replaced by a new mansion, but the memories of what happened here and elsewhere cannot be so easily erased.
I felt very blessed.
For those who survived it, like Theresa Helm, news that Epstein's accomplice, Ghislaine Maxwell, has been moved to a minimum security prison camp is sickening.
It feels like a violation. It's like directly a violation against me is how it feels.
You feel like you're kind of suffering all over again through this.
It is a re-traumatization of the events that I've already been traumatized by. It certainly diminishes some of the justice. It makes me angry. Yeah.
Speculation Trump may pardon Maxwell is equally upsetting.
It would be so tremendously devastating to myself, to all the other women that have suffered from these people, and really any person that has faced any type of sexual trauma anywhere. Kept it to myself for 17 years.
As a 22-year-old student, she was groomed by Ghislaine Maxwell, lured to Epstein's New York mansion and sexually assaulted.
When did you realise when you were there that things had suddenly changed?
When he started putting parts of his body on mine inappropriately, so everything changed then and there. And then it only got worse before I was able to get out of his home. The shame that I felt directly after was nearly paralyzing to me. There is justice in her being charged, prosecuted, found guilty, now behind bars. There's justice in that, but it's slipping away at this point right now.
Loyalty to Donald Trump runs deep across Florida, but his promises to release all the Epstein files have dragged on so long, it's now the butt of a bad bar joke.
He wants to sweep it under the rug, they want it to just go away, and it's not going away. I'd be surprised if the whole truth ever comes out, you know? Yeah, they're still trying to figure out who shot Kennedy.
Who cares about Epstein and all that crap? That's just entertainment tonight stuff.
It's Epstein. Let's look at the other stuff. Did he go to Epstein Island? We know he didn't.
But some of his MAGA base does care. At this Trump-endorsing supermarket, his most ardent fans think the files need to be released to absolve Trump and implicate his enemies.
We've been waiting for literally a decade for this stuff to come out.
But in the state which is his second home, he just can't seem to shake off questions about his former friend, Jeffrey Epstein. A political scandal which at its heart has victims who often feel ignored.
This story has just been sensationalized and political warfare. The survivors are kind of left in the dust or overlooked or even like unaccounted for.
Promises made, but when it comes to Epstein, promises not delivered. Even his most loyal supporters wonder if the truth will ever come out.
And Dan joins us from Florida tonight. And Dan, we heard there from Teresa about the fears of political intervention in Ghislaine Maxwell's case. I mean, this is a story which the president, of course, would dearly love to go away, but it just won't, will it?
No, it won't, Paul. I mean, this is one of the most pro-Trump areas in the whole of Florida. This street in Miami is actually named after Donald Trump, and even here they still are asking questions about the Epstein files. I think there's a number of reasons why this story has got legs, as they say. One is the Trump administration itself hasn't done itself any favours. They're dangling the prospect of releasing the transcript of the interview between Ghislaine Maxwell in prison and the Deputy US Attorney General, that meeting happening just before she was then transferred to a much lower security prison in Texas. But also there is this very strong bipartisan effort in the House of Representatives to try and get to the truth. One thing they've done is set a deadline of August the 19th, by which they say they want all of the Epstein files unredacted to be released. They've demanded the Department of Justice does that. Secondly, they have issued subpoenas forcing people to turn up, a whole host of big names from the past, including most notably Bill and Hillary Clinton, who they say must come before the committee in October and say exactly what they knew. And then thirdly, there are people coming out of the woodwork that used to work for Epstein. There's the butler that gave an interview to the Daily Telegraph today. All of these new stories coming out, really emboldening others to come forward.
OK, Dan, from Florida, thank you very much indeed. Global fascination in the case of Australia's Beef Wellington murder trial has been piqued again with freshly released evidence. Erin Patterson was convicted last month of using death cap mushrooms to kill 3 of her estranged husband's relatives. He, though, had declined her invitation for lunch. Why? Well, according to his pre-trial testimony, which can only now be reported, Simon Patterson had suspected her of planning to poison him.
Could you please state your full name and address for me?
Erin Trudy Patterson, 84 Gibson Street, Leongatha.
And that was where the truth ended and the make-believe began, as police questioned Erin Patterson about the unexplained poisoning of 4 of her family members.
So you understand why we're interviewing you today?
Yeah, I do. But I'm sure you understand too that I've never been in a situation like this before.
That was a lie. Erin Patterson was found guilty of murdering her former in-laws, Don and Gail Patterson, as well as Gail's sister, Heather Wilkinson, whose husband Ian survived. She poisoned them with death cap mushrooms hidden in a beef Wellington. And it's now been revealed she'd allegedly poisoned her ex-husband Simon at least 3 times before.
Why did Erin try to kill you so many times?
That question hasn't been answered, but in pre-trial hearings which have only just been made public, Simon Patterson did tell the court that during a camping trip in 2021, he was hospitalised for 5 days after eating penne bolognese made by his ex-wife. The following year, on another camping trip, after eating her chicken korma, he fell into a coma and had to have part of his bowel removed. A few months later, Mr. Patterson was hospitalised again with seizures and partial paralysis, this time after a vegetable wrap she'd made for him on a walking trip. He declined the invitation to lunch at her home almost a year later, when she would feed the fatal mushrooms to her ex-in-laws instead. Police asked why she'd wanted to cook for them.
I've got no other family, so they're the only support I've got. I love them a lot. They've always been really good to me.
More lies from Erin Patterson, and now more allegations, but her motive is no less of a mystery. Chloe Keedy, News at 10.
Having spotted a small boat off the Great Yarmouth coast and promised to have its occupants deported, it was with some embarrassment the MP Rupert Lowe was forced to row back on his pledge. The dinghy turned out to be a rowing boat. Its 4-man crew 2 weeks into a mammoth charity fundraising effort. They are now at least £1,000 closer to their target, thanks to Mr Lowe himself, who said he will donate to their cause. Nice save. Finally, in what has only been a few short decades, a lot has changed for the job prospects of little girls. The idea of being a professional footballer, for example, might have once been unthinkable. So says the musician and songwriter Self-Esteem, who's now establishing her own literary credentials. Yet on that, she is self-effacing. Prose is just songs without a melody, she told Nina, unshackled from the requirement to rhyme.
As anthems go, it was the perfect choice of song and artist to soundtrack England's Lionesses' road to victory at the Euros. Rebecca Lucy Taylor, aka Self-Esteem, was overwhelmed to be asked to take part.
What a moment. Oh, it was incredible. I remember so vividly being a little girl, like it seems like 2 minutes ago, and I remember thinking that there were jobs I wanted to do that I was told you couldn't. And there was a whole world out there. And it's not just being a footballer, it's like all the other, jobs within sport that now women might be able to do. It's just so exciting and but also really emotional. And then I get backdated anger that how come it's only just now? I can remember a time where the idea I could be, a girl could be a professional footballer is mad. So much has changed, whilst also so little has changed.
Before that came a triumphant set at Glastonbury, and now Self-Esteem has taken her take on being a woman today into the literary world with a new book called, like her album, A Complicated Woman.
Now the clock's ticking because apparently, in music, no one wants to see a woman over 40 doing anything. So it got to the end of last year and I was like, well, what shall I do then? And the book is kind of musing on that. To me, it's like a companion piece to everything I've ever done so far. It's songs without a melody, really, and not having to rhyme.
Is there a part of you that thinks, I'm over this, I'm moving on?
It crosses my mind and I go, imagine if you just never had to do anything again in music. And it's not an option because I need it. Nothing makes me feel more connected to my point in being here than writing a song.
At this year's Ivor Novello Awards, as her songwriting was recognised as being fearless and genre-defying, she called on the industry to protect female artists.
I was just sort of thinking, I'm going to be a room full of these people thinking strong, complicated female voices is the new thing, and I just want to say, just make sure everyone's all right.
Later this month, she's off on tour and then curating a day at the London Literature Festival.
There really needs some time off, but also I want my message to get everywhere.
Being self-esteem is a complicated business. Nina Nanar, News at 10 at the South Bank Centre in London.
And that's it for tonight. I'll be back on Monday. From all the team here, though, good night and have a great weekend.